So the main series has now reached its end. But hey, I still have some footage left over from the Hollow Forest, the optional dungeon left over. With some improvements to be made on work I've done, I'm going to use this video to do that. And somehow I've got no weaknesses, because the persona I'm using gains, I think it's either resist, nullify, or repel fire as a naturally learned skill through level up. So that already is off to a good start. I don't have a weakness, and the one thing I would have been weak to, was fire. But that's not important now. Okay, so we'll just start talking now. This dungeon is different to the rest. There's only one day to complete it, and you can't use any of the equipment or items you already have. Something that sounds like a problem, but this dungeon keeps supplying you with items after every battle. You can't get any new weapons in the dungeon, but the armour, well, they all have one defense, but once again, not important. They give you elemental resistances, and sometimes you can nullify, drain, or even repel elements because of the armour. So it's very good armour, but you only get the effect that you'd have from the armour, so it's really not that great. You can either use it to cover a weakness or just give yourself a whole new resistance. I personally usually use it to cover weaknesses because I'd rather not be hit with something I'm weak to, just to give the enemy an extra turn. So one more thing this dungeon does, you'll lose half your SP after every battle. That can cause problems if you don't manage it properly, but I usually do, so it's fine. Okay, so initially there wasn't any problems with this outside of SP management, because, well, you lose so much so quickly it's difficult to keep an eye on, but hey, you just gotta do that sometimes. But at the beginning, it's fine. It's as you get closer to the end that you feel like you want to go back, go buy an SP like refill, and then you realise by the time you get onto the top floor, you're almost out again. But hey, it's fine. So some cases, because you get accessories in this dungeon that just give you SP passively at the beginning of each turn, just keep hitting an enemy with a physical skill, even if it like nullifies it or something. You've got a way to keep passively generating it as much as you need to. But I spent a lot of time fighting enemies for items to heal or get SP, or for the boss fight, as that's got its own unique trick for it that I will explain later. The first mid-boss of the dungeon, yes, this is the next big thing. It's weak to physical, however it does not take much damage, unless it's an all-out attack. So you gotta keep hitting it with physical attacks to do an all-out attack. It can summon more enemies, so you gotta hit their weaknesses first, and then you hit it for physical. You've just essentially gotta stop it from using Spirit Drain enough to charge up a Mind Charge plus Almighty skill combination. Something I've used a lot in this video series, I know, so using it against me is something I would try to prevent because it's destructive. But outside of that, this fight is done in no time at all because of how simple this is. So the rest of the dungeon, leading up to the next mid-boss, is also easy. I'm sure this is due to the over-leveling I had done, which led to me being more powerful than I needed to be, but I had nowhere else to do the leveling, because in between this and the final dungeon, there's no time whatsoever, which is why I had to do the stream for both of them at once. It went incredibly well for both somehow, avoiding any sort of deaths, which surprised me. But hey, there was nowhere else to do that, so I had to do it just before this one, which may have left me a little powerful, but it's what I normally do when I play through this game, so it's not a problem now. The second mid-boss though, that was a simple fight as well. For this one, you can only hit it with physical skills. It's not weak to them, in fact it even resists them. But I believe this is supposed to be a a kind of practice, I guess you could say, for the boss fight, because you're supposed to use the elemental breaker items to remove its nullification of other elemental skills and then hit it with them. But it's just easier to use physical hits and physical skills on it, even though I believe has the chance to... Yeah, it does have the chance to repel it sometimes, I think. Probably. It wouldn't make sense if it didn't, but if it can't, I'm surprised. But yeah, this fight was simple, so it was just very easy to keep hitting it until it died. In fact, using status moves with rage made it even easier because I wouldn't have to attack myself. And now we're on to the final boss of this dungeon, of course. This one has two forms, one only lasting for a few turns, and they share the same gimmick I had mentioned earlier. They nullify all elements, and you have to use the elemental breaker items to even be able to hit it. It can't even be hit by physical damage this time, so I can't just sit there and keep hitting it for 20, 30 turns. So I had to keep doing that throughout, so I would mind charge if I can, attack boost, give myself all the buffs, and just keep hitting it with these heavy damaging elemental skills while making sure to every 3 or 4 turns throw an elemental breaker item so then I can actually hit it with that element again. I mainly went for wind and ice with this one because, well, they were the two elements that either drained, resisted, or nullified the most. Which, why wouldn't I go for the ones that gives me the best options that I can also attack with as well? So yeah, it worked. I could hit for high amounts of damage, and with some time, the strategy worked and the boss was dead. Well, once again, at the end of this, it's also at the end of anything related to the series. So I appreciate your watching of this video and hopefully some of the others. Goodbye.